Hey Michael with XForcePC, I want to talk to you about why you might want to buy a business PC from us. We've been building PCs for 20 years, and we've gotten pretty good at it. And one of the things you find nowadays in businesses is they'll send the office manager out and say, here, take the credit card and go buy the cheapest thing you can find at Best Buy or Office Depot or Staples. And that's not really the best way to buy a business machine, in my opinion. A lot of those systems just aren't built the way they're supposed to be. And what do I mean by that? Well, the way a computer is supposed to be built is you have the power supply down here in the bottom. There's a fan that draws air up through the bottom and it goes out the back. So that allows the power supply to cool itself. It's not in charge of cooling anything else. It cools itself, and its air doesn't mix with the rest of the system. And then we have a dedicated cooling fan here, which is connected to the motherboard. Now, a lot of cheap computers, first of all, don't even have a dedicated cooling fan. They use the fan and the power supply to try to cool the system. But they'll also have this, if they do have one of these fans, is hooked directly to the power supply, and so it runs at full 100% all the time, full speed. And that gets noisy. So the way we do it, we hook it to the motherboard. The motherboard has temperature sensors, and it tells the fan, oh, it's getting a little warm in here, you need to speed up a little bit, or it's feels kind of good in here. Why don't you slow down a little bit and not draw so much air through? And so that helps with noise, and it helps with dust. If you're drawing tons of air through your system more than you need to, it will cause a dust buildup. Now, I mentioned earlier that the power supply, this is similar to the one we use. Well, this is the one we use, but we may not use this specific one in every system that we build, but we use one with a large diameter fan like this. And this is typically what you see in the low-end systems, is something more like this. You've got a small diameter fan. It's having to work a lot harder, so it's spinning a whole lot faster and causing more noise. This fan is heat sensitive. So the hotter things get in the power supply, the faster the fan spins. That might be the case on the cheap one, but a lot of them I have found just run full speed all the time, 100% fan. So then you've got that noisy fan, plus you're drawing more air through the system than you need to, and you'll find tons of dust buildup. This is also only a 261 watt power supply, so that's pretty marginal. It's going to be working pretty hard compared to this 500 watt, which really, it's barely working, barely having to do anything to power this system. So yeah, you've got a larger diameter fan, moves air better, and is a lot quieter. Now, the other thing in those cheap computers and a lot of business machines, the slowest thing in the system is the disk subsystem, meaning the hard drive. So that's when you go to boot Windows, open programs, install Windows updates, install software. The bottleneck typically is the hard drive, the storage. That's where the operating system and the programs get stored. That's because they're typically using in the cheap ones, a conventional spinning mechanical hard drive. We do use, this is a mechanical drive here, but it's a hybrid drive, so it has some flash storage on it as well, which makes it faster, and it spins at 7,200 RPM. So it's a high performance mechanical hard drive. And then we do offer a solid state or SSD drive, which will make a huge difference in performance, because again, as I mentioned earlier, the biggest bottleneck in the system is the disk subsystem or hard drive. The big thing here is the fact that none of the parts are proprietary. In a lot of the really cheap systems, the motherboard, you can't just go buy another motherboard and put it in there. This is a standard micro ATX motherboard. You can replace it with any other micro ATX motherboard that you want from any company, any brand. Power supply is an ATX power supply. You can put any ATX power supply in that you need to. Hard drive, of course, is standard size. The case is a standard micro ATX case. And standard might sound, oh, that sounds kind of like bad. Well, no, standard is actually good, because none of this stuff is the opposite of standard, which is proprietary. It means you don't have to go out and buy a Dell motherboard or a Lenovo motherboard. Any brand motherboard will fit in here. Same goes, again, with the mentioned earlier, the power supply. We've got a full-size optical drive here, not some slot-loading, weird kind of sized optical drives if that ever needed to be changed. And it's just a really nice case. It's made by, this particular one is made by Corsair, and it's just a really nice case. It's not overly large, but not so small that you're going to have problems with overheating. It's a kind of a mini tower, micro ATX mini tower, so it's very compact and not too terribly heavy. So hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of what some of the differences are between, you know, our business grade computer versus, hey, take the credit card and go down and find the cheapest thing you can find at Staples. It's going to be better, last longer, be quieter, more reliable, and easier to repair.